What's going on, guys? Welcome to Ramping on this channel. Shout out to everyone subscribing to the channel and liking the videos. I appreciate that. In this video, I'm going to be talking about Samsung, the Galaxy S8, the Galaxy S8 Plus, some possibilities with the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, so a lot to talk about. And you know what? The situation with the Samsung Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus is really interesting to me because when I watched the event for the first time, like I was talking about in the previous video, and I didn't watch the whole event, but I saw some things about it because a lot of people were there talking about the phone. You're seeing a lot of reviews out there. It seems like most of the people who are reviewing the phones don't really necessarily know what the phone is all about, and even them themselves are saying, you know what, I've only owned the phone for like a day, I've only used the phone for like a minute, so I'm just going to talk about what I think about it. But at the same time, they're trying to tell you what the phone is all about, and I think it's a weird situation for people out there that go to one of these events and they're talking about what the phone is, because if you talk about this phone and you're trying to figure out, is it the best phone out there, how would you even know if the phone was only used for like a minute? See, this is a situation where people review phones that are at an event. The people who run the event, including like Samsung, they want to share the best stories about their phones, obviously, so people get really interested in the phone and they possibly might pre-order the phone, and then you have a lot more sales. So we realize what's going on out there. But when you talk about this phone, and like in one situation, someone was saying, well, the phone screen is narrow, but guess what? When you watch video, the screen is really narrow also. It's like, what does that mean? Because, you know, of course the screen size is going to be narrow when you watch the video. That means that the video is going to be narrow also. I thought most people realize that, but it just explains a lot about what people don't know about the phone, because you don't have much to say about it as someone who does not use the phone, even if you used it for 24 hours. A lot of the people talking about this phone, by the way, they're not going to be using either phone. And that's another thing that I think is kind of weird, because I understand that you want to talk about the phone, but if you're not going to use the phone at all, why don't you just say, you know what, this phone is not for me. I'm not going to be using this phone. Possibly use an iPhone all the time, who knows? Why don't you just talk about that you're a fan of the iPhone, you thought the phone was cool, you went to the event, you thought it was interesting. Why not just talk like that? Why does it have to be, this is the review for the Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus? Is the Galaxy S8 and the Galaxy S8 Plus the best phones out there? Are these the phones that are going to destroy the iPhone? Why do they have to talk like that? Why? Is it about the hype? Because another thing that I think is kind of odd about this is that people out there, again, who are talking about these phones and go to these events, specifically in the situation with Samsung. I am a fan of your company. I would just think you can go about it in a different way, similar to what Apple does. Apple doesn't do all that. Now, for a lot of you out there that like Samsung, or if you're a fan of Android, you're going to say, hey, what are you saying about Apple? You think they're better than Samsung? I really think if Apple can create an impressive phone, it is going to compete with the Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus and possibly be even better, because there are issues with the Samsung phones. Although I think the Samsung phones are probably some of the best phones out there that you're going to find with Android phones. So I like Samsung, and I have to appreciate the fact that they have some of the best screen technology out there. So they do a great job with that. As far as Android and how to get more Android users to use those phones without having to root your phone, meaning you just buy the phone and use it, I would think you really need to explain to people why you have TouchWiz on the phone if you're trying to get people to use TouchWiz. At this point in time, I think what happens is that people use TouchWiz on that phone. They might have an awful experience with the phone, and then they're saying, hey, wait a minute, I used a Galaxy phone, TouchWiz was weird, what is this all about? This is what Android's all about? I'm not really a fan of that. See, there's a lot of people out there that might do that. Actually, I've seen people out there say things about the Samsung phones, and they're saying things about Android, but you're really not acknowledging that TouchWiz is on the phone, and TouchWiz influences how Android works on the phone itself. And again, a lot of people out there don't talk about the phones that way because maybe they don't know and they don't realize. I get it, but you know, you want to talk about these phones so people realize what they're actually using. So a lot of you out there that are fans of Android, I think Android is the best mobile OS out there. It's fantastic. I think really for people out there that want to get a unique phone, the Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus, those are unique phones and they look great. And if you're talking about installing Android on a phone like that, it would be awesome. I'm saying that because those phones are cool. But if you're talking about which I would think is the better phone, I would say the design of the Galaxy S8 makes more sense, although I prefer a phablet. But because they made the design narrow, I don't really appreciate the fact that they have a narrow phablet. That's just my personal opinion. But as far as comparing phones, a lot of people who don't talk about Huawei are not realizing that Huawei is a company that really could compete with HTC at this point and possibly even work with a company like Google. Now think if Huawei and Google work together more. I'm not just talking about one specific phone because Huawei and Google have worked together. I'm talking about for all the phones from Google. Then you have a great looking phone because Huawei designed some cool phones. And then you have the stock version of Android on the phone. That would be cool. That would get my attention, because at this point in time, I've never purchased a phone from Huawei, but I would be interested in purchasing a phone from Huawei if they worked with Google on another phone, because I think they're doing a better job than HTC. And if you compare all the companies, I also think LG creates some unique looking phones also. I think the recent phone they created is called the LG, what is it called? The LG G6, I think it's called. That's a pretty cool phone also. They really know how to design phones. With LG, you're going to get a nice looking phone. I'm not saying HTC can't design phones. Their company is having issues, and I think the real reason they might be having issues is possibly because you do have other companies like Huawei, getting involved and competing with them. And when you have more competition out there, companies are getting pressure to create some really amazing phones. So I think out of all the phones I'm interested to see now, I really want to see the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. Because if Apple designs a phone that really gets people's attention, which I know they're going to do with Apple fans, and that's why I said in the previous video, Apple fans are really going to watch those events from Apple. They want to know what's going on. No matter what Apple's doing, they want to see what phone, what tablet, whatever Apple's talking about. That's what goes on when people are fans of Apple. But if they create a phone and they have wireless charging, which is not complicated to implement, and I think Apple tries to do their own thing sometimes. But when you see other companies doing something, Apple, you guys try to improve upon it also. And I think that you guys can just implement that feature into your phone easily. And then also USB-C would be another feature. And then people are talking about removing the home button. A lot of people have been talking about it, and I'm talking about the physical home button on the phone. And I think it makes a lot of sense to do that at this point, not just because of Samsung. I was saying this before when Apple didn't do that. If Apple wants to innovate the iPhone, you have to change the way it looks. And it doesn't mean you have to change it completely to the point it looks like an HTC phone or anything. You just need to change the way it looks so people realize that you're innovating your phone and you're making changes to it enough so where people would actually be convinced to purchase that phone. Now, I've already heard people talking about whether they would use a Samsung Galaxy S8, S8 Plus, or an iPhone 8 Plus. And again, in the previous video, that's why I was talking about that. Because if you're looking at the Samsung Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus, and you're like, you know what? If I compare this to the iPhone, would I purchase an iPhone? Well, you have to watch the event to even know about it, so you have to see what Apple creates. But if you're someone who just doesn't like iOS, and I have to say, I am someone that doesn't really like iOS, although if Apple improves iOS, I'm going to acknowledge that and say, you know what? If Apple improves iOS, yeah, I could use an iPhone. It's not the worst thing out there. I mean, a lot of people use an iPhone, but for me, I'd rather use Android because I really like Android. And I think this has to do with a lot of experiences people have with phones. When I used an iPhone, I liked the design of the phone, and it was really funny. I was thinking the other day, what if we could root to iPhone and install Android on it? Now, I know that would defeat the whole purpose of using an iPhone or an Android phone, but really, it would be really funny to me, because if you could install Android on an iPhone, and I'm sure someone could figure this out, if you do that, you're getting a phone with a good design and also a great experience. And I'm not saying that iOS can't be a great experience. A lot of people out there like iOS. But I think also a lot of people like iOS because they're used to it. And when you're familiar with an OS like iOS, most people would want to use that more than Android if you don't really know how to use Android. And same goes for Android users. Not everyone wants to use iOS because you like Android and you're used to that. And if you used iOS, you probably think it's different or confusing or whatever it is. Although I have to say this, it's not really that confusing, but it would be different where you're not used to it. So I think the better option for people out there that like Android, the Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus, you could use TouchWiz, but I think a lot of people out there would like the phones even more with Android, just a stock version of Android. You guys can let me know what you think about that in the comments, but that's what I'm saying about the phones. And as far as people reviewing them or anything else, I get completely what they're trying to do. At the same time, though, I would think that if you want to compete with Apple, just like I was saying, Apple should get some ideas from the other manufacturers. Well, Samsung, you should get some ideas from Apple on how they advertise their phones. And again, I'm saying that as a fan of your company, because if you can do that, then you're going to get more people to use your phones and tablets, and more people are going to enjoy the phones, so you create better phones, because that's how it works. You have to create better phones so people like them, and then you can work on them even more. Look what happened with HTC. I think what's going on with their company is that a lot of people start using Huawei and other companies, including Samsung. It's just not a good situation with HTC in the way they design phones, and the experience is not that impressive either with HTC Sense. That's from what I'm seeing about their phones. And I think for Samsung, they're not an HTC. Samsung is Samsung. But I think as far as the phones, Samsung can do a much better job with the way they advertise the phones, and also the way they explain why they designed the phone itself, because the Samsung Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus, the narrow screens is something you can really change. But I would like to know what you guys think about all of this. Post your comments down below. Let me know what you think about the Galaxy S8, the Galaxy Galaxy S8 Plus, or features that you would want with the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. And of course, if you like this video, give a thumbs up. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.